is up, you guys? Film Fan 0599 here again, and it's finally here. It's finally here. My top 10 best movies of 2018. After a long while, it's finally here. I feel like I have a good enough list. I feel like I've seen everything I need to see, and I think my list is good. I think I like my list, and I'm about ready to present it after all these months. So yeah, I'm very excited to talk about my list, talk about some of my favorite movies from last year, and as always, remember, this is my best list. These are not the definitive top 10 best movies of 2018. This is just, in my opinion, what were the best and which ones I enjoyed the most out of the movies from 2018. If you don't see your favorite on here, either it didn't make the list, I may have not enjoyed it, or I didn't see it. So, don't think, make assumptions, So, like I said, this is not, the definitive top 10 best movies of 2018. These are just, out of the ones that I saw, I thought were the best. So, hopefully you enjoyed the list. So, before we get into the list, I do have 5 honorable mentions. Those 5 honorable mentions are Annihilation, Won't You Be My Neighbor, Solo: A Star Wars Story, Batman Ninja, and Unsane. Those are my 5 honorable mentions. So, without further ado, let's get into my top 10 best movies of 2018, starting off with number 10. So coming in at my number 10 is Love, Simon. Love, Simon was a movie I actually had a really big interest in because I did like a lot of the trailers to it, and the fact that, we don't really get movies, especially like, high school movies like these where the main character, is gay. Like, we really don't see that all that often too much. And, I was very interested to see that. And, it was actually a really great coming-of-age movie. I generally really enjoyed this film. I really loved it a lot. Like, Simon was easily one of my favorite characters of last year. You totally can get where he's coming from, having to hold this huge secret that he is gay. And, he's not too sure how people will react to that. Because, unfortunately, not everyone's going to react positively to that, which is a shame, but it happens. And he's very nervous about how his family's gonna take it, how his friends are gonna take it, and we see that. And also the mystery of who is this other person that he's falling in love with. And I really enjoyed seeing that. It was really great. Like, I thought Nick Robinson easily gave one of the best performances of last year. He was fantastic in the film. I generally really enjoyed this movie a lot, honestly. And I'm glad that especially, people like in their teen years, have a movie like this, that they can relate to. I feel like you can relate to this movie even if you're not gay, because I feel like there are things in here that you could still like really relate to. It's easily a very relatable film in my opinion, and I generally like that a lot, honestly. I do think this is a really fantastic coming-of-age film, and I really enjoyed that a lot, honestly. Like, it is really fantastic. One of the 2 movies of this year that were very close to getting an A+, in my opinion, and I just really love this film a lot. It is such an amazing movie, and it easily deserves to be at my number. Even though it just barely made the list at number 10, it's still an incredible movie. I think you all should check it out if you haven't seen it yet. It is an absolutely fantastic movie. I love this movie a lot. It definitely deserves to come in my list at number 10. So coming in at number 9 is A Star Is Born. A Star Is Born was a movie that, I had never seen the other adaptations of A Star Is Born before. This was my first time watching any of the adaptations of A Star Is Born, and I was generally blown away, honestly. Like, what Bradley Cooper brought in his directorial debut with this movie was absolutely outstanding, honestly. I absolutely loved pretty much almost every minute of this movie. This movie is heartbreaking, it's emotional, and it's just so fantastic. I loved it so much. I wish it would have won more at the Oscars, to be honest, because it's so great. Like, I loved this movie so much. Like, and it just has such great music to it. The soundtrack is easily the best soundtrack of last year, maybe my favorite soundtrack of the whole decade, to be honest. I love this soundtrack so much. Bradley Cooper gives arguably his best performance in this film. He is absolutely incredible here. Lady Gaga, in my opinion, not only gave the best lead actress performance of last year, but just gave the best performance in general of last year. She is absolutely phenomenal. Like, I loved her so much in this movie. She gave an absolutely fantastic performance, and their chemistry with each other was great. I loved seeing Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga's chemistry with each other. They were absolutely great. Like, I thought they had such great chemistry with each other. And every time, when you see them perform Shallow for the first time together, you just get chills. Because it's just so good. And it's just, like, it's so fantastic. Like, I loved every minute of this movie. This movie is so fantastic. Like, this is generally a really phenomenal film. And I absolutely loved A Star is Born. It is absolutely fantastic in my opinion. And it definitely deserves to be on my best list. Like, just because it's at number 9 doesn't take away from the fact that how amazing this movie is and how incredible it is. Like, I absolutely love this film, and like I said, it definitely deserved more at the Oscars. And it just got Best Original Song. It should have gotten way more, because this movie is truly amazing, and I loved every minute of it. Coming in at number 8 is First Reformed. First Reformed was a movie I didn't know really much about going into it. Like, I obviously was aware of what it was, who it starred and stuff like that, but I really didn't know what I was getting myself into, because I didn't watch any of the trailers to it. I didn't really read too much about the plot, so I was pretty much going into this movie almost blind. And I'm kind of glad I did, because this movie is such a haunting character piece in a way. Like, this movie is really great. Like, I loved every minute of this. I know some people were like, oh, it was really slow, but I think the slow burning, the slow pacing and the slow burning with this movie really worked. Honestly, like, generally, yes, it was slow, but that doesn't mean I was not invested pretty much throughout the entirety of this movie. Like, what drove it? Pretty much Ethan Hawke's performance and the writing with this movie. That's what really drove this movie, in my opinion. And Ethan Hawke, man, arguably just gave his best performance in this movie that I have seen, honestly, because, man, does he just bring so much to this performance, and it's so haunting as well, and I loved it. Like, I thought he was absolutely phenomenal in this film. Probably my second favorite lead actor performance of the whole year, to be honest. He was so great in this movie. Like, I generally really loved him in the film, and like I said, the screenplay is absolutely fantastic. Like, just the dialogue, like, I was so intrigued. Like, every piece of dialogue was amazing in this movie. Like, Paul Schaefer's writing with the film was great, and also his directing was really fantastic with this movie, too. It's very well shot. The cinematography is absolutely gorgeous with this movie. And it's just so great. Like, I really genuinely didn't know what I was getting myself into going into it. And coming out of it, I pretty much loved every minute of it. It was an absolutely fantastic character study of the film, and the ending is easily one of my favorite endings of the whole year. Like, it just leaves you breathless, honestly. Like, it is absolutely great. First Reformed, absolutely fantastic movie. Definitely deserves to be on my list. Man, really did not expect what I was getting myself into with this one. Alright, coming in at number 7 is Hereditary. Talking about scaring the bejesus out of me, man, Hereditary was one frightening movie. I generally think I haven't seen a movie that scary since I saw The Exorcist for the first time, because my God almighty was I terrified watching pretty much the entirety of this film. It is haunting. It is very, very just intense, and like every moment of this movie you're just feeling like, what's happening next? Because it just leaves you on the edge of your seat and wondering what is going to happen next. Because it's just everything just blows up in this movie. It's absolutely fantastic. I really enjoyed that a lot. Toni Collette is absolutely fantastic in this film. I generally think she, a lot of people thought, she gave the best performance of last year. I can't really argue with that because she's absolutely fantastic in this film. I absolutely loved her. She gave such a just an intense and riveting performance. I thought, she was absolutely phenomenal in the film. And everyone else is great here too. Like the acting overall is really fantastic in this movie. Like I said, the just the horror element is used to such perfection in this film. And literally, there's not a moment where it tries to be scary. It didn't affect me. Like it affected me every time it happened. Like, and just the way the movie gets really intense, especially towards the third act of the movie, it leaves you like, ooh, yeah, it just leaves you with such a spine chilling presence in you, and it's really great. And I think the way that they do it in this film is so fantastic, and this movie is so well directed, and and the cinematography with this film is so amazing too. Like, it is so fantastic. It is generally probably the best horror film I've seen all this decade, and it's just such a frightening film. Like I said, probably easily the scariest movie since I watched The Exorcist for the first time. Because man, I generally was terrified while watching this film, and that's what a horror film is supposed to do. It's supposed to terrify you while watching it, and that's exactly what Hereditary did, and it's absolutely fantastic. So coming in at number 6 is Blindspotting. Now this was another one, kind of like with First Reformed. I really didn't know what to expect going into it. I didn't watch any of the trailers. I barely read what the plot was about, to be honest. I just heard about the movie. I just heard about the movie when it was coming out in the summer and stuff like that. Really didn't hear too much buzz about it at first. Once people started making their best lists, I heard it more and more, as I was hearing people make their best list. I was like, all right, I guess I gotta watch this and, to order to fulfill my best list. And I'm really glad I did because this movie is absolutely fantastic. This movie is really great. Like, I really enjoyed this movie from start to finish. David Duggs and Riffle, I can't pronounce the other guy's name, but the guys that play Collins and Davis are great. Like, I think they're absolutely fantastic. Like, easily some of the best lead actor performances I saw all year. Like, their chemistry with each other is so great. And I really do enjoy them a lot in this film. Like, I really bought their friendship, honestly. Like, the two just had such natural chemistry with each other that you just buy into their friendship almost just the moment you see them on screen. And that's great. Like, if you're gonna have a movie like this, you need to really buy into that, and they do an absolutely fantastic job with that. Also, they write the screenplay to this movie, and the screenplay to this film might be my favorite of 2018. Like, the way that they balance comedy and drama with this movie is actually really great. Like, the tone balance is actually done to perfection in this movie. Like, I really enjoyed how they actually balance the tone of comedy and drama, because both are great. This movie's hilarious. Like, honestly, like, every time they, joked around in this movie, like, I thought the comedy really worked. I thought it was hilarious. But when it needed to go into more dramatic elements, I thought it worked to perfection as well. Like, I was invested so much into the dramatic elements of this movie, and they did such a great job with that. Like, I absolutely love that about this movie. And, the way that it deals with some things like racial identity and police brutality, like stuff like that. I thought they actually handled kind of those subject matters really well in this movie, and I thought they did a very good job with that. And the directing with this film too is really fantastic. Like, I believe his name is Carlos Estrada. I believe that's the director's name, and he does an absolutely fantastic job directing this film. And this was his first time directing a movie. This was his directorial debut, and man, what a movie to make your debut on, honestly. Like, Blindspotting is one of the most underappreciated movies of last year, and I feel like a lot more people should see it because it's absolutely fantastic. I loved every minute of this film, and I'm really glad that the people that put this on the best list pretty much forced me to watch it, because I absolutely loved it, and it definitely deserves to be on this list. So coming at my number 5 is Avengers Infinity War. The hype was real for this movie, let's be for real. The hype was extremely real for this movie. It was everything that the MCU had been building towards, and it was finally coming. Thanos was coming, and it was worth the wait. It was very, very much worth the wait, because this movie is truly, absolutely incredible. I love this film so much. I've seen this movie about like 3 times, honestly, and it's like it gets better and better on each viewing, to be honest. And it's just so great. Like, this movie could have been a mess. With the amount of characters that are in this movie could have been a gigantic mess. But the way the Russo brothers balance each character into different storylines was really fantastic, and the way some of them come together is great. Like when the Guardians meet Iron Man and Spider-Man, like it's awesome. Like it's like something like you're reading the pages of these comic books back in the day, and you're like, man, would you ever think that this would happen on the big screen? And it did. Like it's awesome. Like, honestly, like, and this is easily one of the most emotional in the entirety of the MCU. Like, oh man, some of the scenes, and man, especially when you get to that ending. The ending, oh man, and it is so fantastic. Like, I generally really enjoy that, and the way some of the characters are in this movie. Thor is the best I've ever seen him in any of these movies. Like, Thor's a complete badass in this movie. Like, easily the best of the heroes in this movie. Like, he was a complete badass. The Guardians were great. Spider-Man was awesome. Iron Man was great too. Like, many of the heroes were great in this movie. I really like where they took in their directions into this film. Like, I generally like that a lot. And Thanos did not come to play around. Thanos was awesome in this movie. Really worth the wait, honestly, of this build-up and waiting to see him. And man, when we finally saw him and saw him doing some work on them Avengers, it was awesome. And I generally really thought Josh Brolin gave an absolutely fantastic performance. Definitely giving us one of the best villains in the comic book genre, or maybe just in the movie genre in general. Like, I do think he's absolutely fantastic in this film. Like, this movie was so worth the wait. The action sequences are absolutely fantastic in this movie. Oh man, just the scene on Wakanda, oh man, just so great. Like, I love this movie so much. It might be my favorite movie in the MCU, to be honest. Just everything about this is pure perfection, and absolutely deserves to be in the top 5. This movie is absolutely incredible, and I cannot wait to see what Endgame has to offer, especially what happens towards the end. So yeah, Avengers Infinity War definitely deserves to be on this list. So coming in at my number 4 is Bad Times at the El Royale. Some people might be surprised that this is this high on my list and over Avengers Infinity War, but this movie has, listen, I love me some just intense, mystery movies. Like, I love those type of movies, and this is easily one of the best ones I've seen in this genre. Like, I love this movie so much. It is an absolutely just blast of a movie. Like, I loved every minute of it. Like, just from the opening, when we see all the characters in the hotel for the first time, I'm like, oh, I'm so excited to see where this goes. It is such an intriguing mystery, and the non-linear storytelling that they do with this movie is so great. Like, generally, I'm like, okay, how is everything going to intertwine with each other? Like, oh, I'm so excited, and it is so great. Like, I loved every minute of this. Like, all the characters are fantastic in this. Jeff Bridges, oh man, I loved him in this movie. Like, he's like, shit happens, get the whiskey. Like, I love it. Like, he's just so awesome in this movie. Like, he is basically Jeff Bridges, but times 100 in this movie, and he is so fantastic. Chris Hemsworth's great for the limited time of screen time he has. He's fantastic. Like, just everyone just gives a great performance in here. Like, generally, like just gives like some of the best performances I've seen all year. Like I generally loved all the characters in this. Like the mystery element was so fantastic. Like I love the mystery element of this movie so much. It is so great. Like I said, this is probably one of the best mystery movies I've seen, honestly. Like, this was so great. Drew Goddard just knocked it out of the park, man, with his writing and his directing with this movie. Just, he knocked it out of the park once again. And I absolutely loved Bad Times at the El Royale. Easily probably the most fun movie of 2018. And I just had a blast watching this from start to finish. Absolutely fantastic movie. So coming out of my number 3 is First Man. First Man was a movie I was really looking forward to because for many of reasonings. I've always been interested in the story and the life of Neil Armstrong and the and the moon landing and stuff like that. And when Ryan Gosling got cast as Neil Armstrong, I was like, this is actually kind of perfect, honestly. And Damien Chazelle was doing the film. I loved Whiplash and I really enjoyed La La Land. So I was like, all right, so we could have something great on our hands here, and we did. We absolutely did. This is probably, in my opinion, Damien Chazelle's best movie to date. This movie is so riveting and so emotional. Like, I really generally think this is it's really intense. Like when they're up into space, it gets really intense. But when they're just back onto Earth and interacting with people, it's so emotional and so investing. And Ryan Gosling easily gives the best lead male performance of last year, in my opinion. He is so fantastic. I know some people are like, but he's just, emotionless throughout the entirety. Well, that's how Neil Armstrong was, and, he just brings that to life. Like, he brings that, to this movie. I do enjoy that a lot. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like I'm watching Ryan Gosling. I'm actually feeling like I'm watching Neil Armstrong himself. Like, you know what I mean? And Ryan Gosling does an absolutely fantastic job with that in this movie. And the emotional elements that they have in this film, especially with his wife played by Claire Foy, who gives the best supporting role of last year, in my opinion. She was absolutely fantastic, and just the emotion between the two of them is absolutely fantastic. And it is so great, the visual effects. My goodness, that I feel like I was actually up into space with Ryan Gosling and everyone else. Like, I saw this movie in theaters, and I was just blown away. Like, I couldn't believe what I was witnessing, because I didn't feel like I was in the theater watching a movie. No, I felt like I was up on the moon with them, and that's what you're supposed to do with movies, and visual effects especially. Make you escape. Make you feel like you were with the characters, and that's exactly what they did with the visual effects in this film. Damien Chazelle's directing with this movie is absolutely fantastic. It is so well shot. The editing is fantastic with this movie. The cinematography is great. The sound mixing and editing is fantastic with this film. The fact that they didn't win for those in those categories is honestly a shame, because man, the sound mixing and editing was fantastic with this film. Production design was great as well. It just, everything about this movie is so great. And when you get to that last shot of the film, I damn near almost cried, honestly. Like, I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. Like, just the way it's done and just the emotion, like, that holds in there is so fantastic. I absolutely loved this movie. This is a movie that should have gotten way more recognition in terms of award season, and it's a damn shame, because this movie is so phenomenal and easily deserves to be in my top 3. Like, this movie is absolutely fantastic. I loved every minute of First Man, and it definitely deserves to be at my number 3. Alright, so coming out by number 2 is Mission Impossible Fallout. Whew, in terms of theater experiences I had last year, this was easily the best one. Man, let me tell you something. Whew! Okay, let me tell you something. They were not messing around with this one, okay? They really weren't. Like, I thought nothing could really compare to the fourth movie. Like, the fourth movie, I thought, they reached the insanity level with that movie. I don't think they could ever top that. No, they topped it in spades with Fallout. My God almighty. This movie, wow, like, easily, like, this is, like, up there with, like, Mad Max Fury Road, and, like, The Raid 2 is, like, some of my favorite action films this entire decade. Like, I absolutely loved every minute of this movie. This movie's intense. This movie is suspenseful. The action is, the action is easily the best you're gonna see all year, to be, all of 2018, to be honest. Like, the action sequences in this film are absolutely incredible. Like, the helicopter sequence, the bathroom fight sequence, like the Halo jump sequence. Like, I could name off pretty much every single action scene in this movie is spectacular. Like, seriously, like, it's great. Like, each and every one, you're like, how is this game more intense than the last one? Like, it's so great. And, what makes them great is a lot of things. One, the directing. Christopher McQuarrie, man, I love his directing with this movie. It's so well shot. It's so well edited. The cinematography is absolutely fantastic. Like, just the way he handles these action sequences is great. And I really enjoyed that a lot. And, I'm glad that he's coming back for these last two movies, to be honest, because, man, oh man, does he just know what he's doing with this series. I absolutely loved his directing with this film. And, Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is still great as the character of Ethan Hunt. This is probably his best performance as the character, to be honest. Like, he is really fantastic in this movie. Like, I absolutely loved him in this film. And what I love about, and I believe I mentioned this in my review as well, because what I love about this and, him in this series is that he does all the stunts. So it's even more intense when you're seeing stuff like this, because it's like, that's actually him doing this stuff. And, that's what makes it so intense. I absolutely love that. And, I'm left on the edge of my seat wondering what's going to happen next. Henry Cavill is absolutely fantastic. He is arguably, could be the best villain we've ever had in this series. He's definitely up there, at least with Philip Seymour Hoffman, honestly. He is really fantastic in this film. And I just love this movie from start to finish. It is an absolute action masterpiece. Like, it is so fantastic. I absolutely loved every minute of this film. And it's so incredible. Like, it is the best in this series, without a doubt, and I honestly don't know how they'll top it. But I don't have any doubt in my mind that they can possibly can, because, man, this movie was some. Alrighty. Number one best movie of 2018. Oh, man. As you saw with that title sequence beforehand, my number one best movie of 2018 is, without question, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I'm pretty sure not too many people are surprised by that, but I felt like, and let me explain something, because pretty much anybody that knew me and that saw this movie before me was like, this is going to be your favorite movie of the year. Like, and I can't blame them from thinking that, because, like, this felt like a movie that was made for me, honestly. Like, I usually don't say that a lot, but, like, I felt like this was a movie that was, like, made for me, because everything I love about movies is just intervened into this one film. Like, it is so fantastic. Like, this movie is beautiful, it's creative, it's inspiring, it is just everything I love about film put into one. The voice acting is incredible in this movie. Shameik Moore is fantastic as Miles Morales. Miles Morales is probably the best lead character I've seen in a comic book film in quite some time, to be honest. Like, I absolutely enjoyed his character so much in this film. Honestly, like, he is fantastic, and Shameik Moore's performance is great. Jake Johnson as Peter B. Parker / Spider-Man is also great. I love the dynamic between the two of them. They have such great chemistry with each other, and just that kind of teaching, kind of like that teacher, teaching the student kind of thing with this movie is really great. I really enjoyed seeing that a lot. Haley Steinfeld's great as Spider-Gwen. Nicolas Cage is great as Spider-Noir. John Mulaney is great as Spider-Ham. Like, the voice acting overall is just fantastic. Like, the animation is fantastic with this movie, too. Literally bringing a comic book to life with this movie. Like, no one's ever really attempted that. Like, actually bring elements of a comic book to life, and they did that spectacularly with this film. Like, I absolutely love that with this movie. They did an absolutely fantastic job with that. The emotion, the humor, just everything works with this movie. Like, it generally, everything works with this film. Like, I absolutely loved everything about this movie. This was, like I said, felt like a movie that was made for me, honestly. Like, I generally pretty much think this movie's perfection. Like, I loved it so much. Like, I just think it's such an incredible, just not only achievement in animated films, but just an achievement in movies in general, because nothing like this has really been done before. Like, literally bringing a comic book to life, and it's so fantastic. Like, I love this movie so much. It has already, I think, maybe become one of my favorite movies, to be honest. Like, it is just so fantastic. Like, I absolutely love this movie so much. Like, I feel like nowadays I feel like with each year, I said this in my review, I feel like with each year I get that one movie that reminds me why I loved films, and for a long time it was Mission Impossible Fallout. But then once I saw this movie, I'm like, no, it's this one. This one truly reminds me why I love movies, and truly what it means to be a hero as well, because there's two superheroes, in my opinion, that truly embody what it is to be a hero. They are Superman and Spider-Man. And just the way that they show how much that means to be a hero, that's one of my favorite elements about Spider-Man. He shows what it truly means to be a hero, and we see that in this movie, and it's fantastic. Like, I love how they do that in this movie, and it is really amazing, and it shows no matter who you are, you can be a hero. And I think that's a really important message for a lot of people, and the way that it's executed here is done very beautifully. I love this movie so much. It is an absolutely phenomenal film, in my opinion, and not only is it the best animated film of last year, but in my opinion, it's the best movie of last year in general. Just a phenomenal film all around, and I can't really sing the praises enough. Like, if you haven't seen it, just go out and see it. It's absolutely phenomenal, and I loved every minute of it. And it's definitely worthy of being my best movie of 2018. That's all, folks. That's my top 10 best movies of 2018. Oh man, I hope you all enjoyed this video. I'm glad I was finally able to get out this list and everything, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed my list, and hopefully you enjoyed the video. I had a fun time making this, and talking about some of my favorite movies of last year. Now, I leave the question to you. What were your maybe top 5, top 10, top 15, top 20, it doesn't matter. What were your favorite movies of 2018? Please leave in the comment section below. I'm FilmFan0599, and we will see you out later. Peace.